So thank you everyone for coming to this workshop. My name is Jessica Static Feist. I work for the Civil Rights Division at the North Dakota Department of Transportation. And today's workshop is from requirement to partnership, best practices for DBE contracting. So a little bit about this workshop. Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, DBE programs, have been designed to provide small businesses owned and controlled by socially and economically disadvantaged individuals a fair opportunity to compete for federally funded transportation contracts. Our panel will discuss ways to elevate DBEs in the transportation industry. We will discuss topics such as the challenges DBEs face in the process, how firms can meaningfully partner with the DBE, and why DBE participation is important to transportation agencies. Now, with that being said, do we have any current DBEs or previously certified DBEs in the room? And where are you from? Okay, what's the name of your firm? North Star Erosion? Close. Okay. Perfect. So on today's panel, we have Amy Conklin. She is the DBE Program Administrator for the North Dakota Department of Transportation. You want to give a little wave, Amy? We also have Beth Nodland. She's the founder and CEO of Juniper LLC, current consulting DBE. We have Cathy LaFata from HDR. She's the Transportation Equity Director. And Holly Beck from Moore Engineering. Holly is a semi-retired civil engineer and land surveyor of Moore Engineering. And she founded her woman-owned business. Holly Beck. Sorry, Holly. Okay, we're good. And then I also have Jen Hanley, also from HDR. She'll be up here with the panelists.
So our format today is I am going to ask these wonderful ladies questions, and they're going to respond from different perspectives. And so we have Cathy here from HDR as a prime consultant, so a larger firm that works to partner with DBEs. We have two different types of DBEs as far as an environmental resource group and then a surveying and engineering, and I'm really glad to hear we have someone on the construction side in the room. And then Amy is bringing her knowledge from the agency perspective and in construction, and the looking at what we need to do to comply with our federal regulations and to adhere to the things she needs to follow with the DBE program at the DOT. So I'm just going to ask these ladies some questions, and they're going to have a discussion. I hope that if any of you have questions, that you please either raise your hand in the middle. We can leave some time towards the end, but feel free to ask anything that you would love to hear from these women. So my first question, I think I am going to direct at Cathy, and then I'm going to flip it. So I'm going to ask this from a prime. What do you look for in a good teaming partner to help a DBE advance in the industry?
Okay, so HDR is a firm of about 12,000 people, and we partner across every area of our business. We're very proud of the culture that we have at our company, and we like our partners to have that culture. So we don't just pick a DBE. We actually pick a firm that's going to be, part of similar culture. We care about our people, care about our work. We develop relationships with them. We develop relationships with them, and we carry through with them. Not just one opportunity. We go to the next opportunity with them. So they really become partners. So we're looking for people that kind of supplement the work that we do, maybe fill some gaps, but also somebody we can have a long-lasting relationship with. Because that's really the best success, because you get to know each other. It's just like an extension of our family.
Okay, now I want to flip this and ask Beth the same question. So when you're looking for a teaming partner, what is something that you look for that will help your business advance in this industry?
Well, my company, Juniper, is, we do primarily archaeology, and we are both prime and sub, mostly sub. And so what we're looking for when we're approached by companies, because we have such a small niche, like mine is the only woman-owned DBE, well, the only woman-owned archaeology company in North Dakota, and I think the only DBE archaeology company. So we get approached across the board from a lot of places. And so some of the things that we look for the firms who ask us to sub are questions like communication and timing. Like if we get put in a position where somebody's calling us like on Friday at 5 saying, can you be there Monday at 9 a.m., we tend to kind of walk away a little bit. Somebody who's conscious of as a very small business, conscious of our invoicing and cash flow cycle. It's very hard to carry multiple projects when you're on a 120-day payment or receivable schedule, which we generally are. And so if it goes from us to a prime to a county to the state and then works its way back 30 days each of those, that's really hard on little DBEs. So those are the kinds of things. It's the one other one I thought of was because we are in the planning phases, the biologist, the botanist, the archaeologist, we're out there before a lot of other people. It's really important to us that the people who we sub under are good at their right-of-way or their land people are ahead of us so that we're not walking into people's farmyards facing shotguns.
Maybe, Holly, I'll give you the opportunity to answer that same question if you'd like. And, you know, Holly is one of the pioneering women here in the state as far as engineering and surveying from a female perspective. And so, you know, I know you're no longer more engineering, but Holly Beck Engineering and Surveying. And so, again, you know, from your perspective, Holly, maybe what was a good thing when looking at partnering relationships and how they could help your business advance?
Well, one of the things that we looked for is a company that was experienced working in North Dakota DOT projects primarily, so that they knew what the scope of work is and not have unrealistic expectations or not knowing what the expectations are and then assuming that we're overcharging or that our scope of work is outside of what is really needed. We have had a lot of experience working on DOT projects and surveying, so we really were familiar with the formatting and that sort of thing to get the project done. And we liked to work with firms that could find a bigger project, particularly because it was easier for us to schedule. And the good firms would realize that you have to give notice and planning, and communication is important, so we know when we need to be there.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to switch gears to construction just so Amy can hop in here. What resources does the North Dakota DOT provide certified firms to help them succeed?
Sure. So we have a supportive services contract with a consultant who is actually also a DBE based out of South Dakota. And those funds are used to provide business development, training reimbursements, membership reimbursements, different events that we host throughout the year to grow your business and meet your needs where they are. So those are some of them.
I'm going to stick with you just because I've actually had recently don't ask why we were having this conversation over dinner one night, but what is the process if a prime contractor doesn't meet a DBE goal that is set on a project at the time of bid? What affects the county, or what happens?
Sure. So that's probably one of the biggest differences between consulting and highway construction. We set goals on federal aid projects for highway construction, and consulting is race neutral, so it's more participate if you can. Mm-hmm. And so if there is a goal set on a project and the prime is unable to meet that, they have to send in documentation showing that they made a good faith effort to meet the goal. We do try to make our goals as attainable as possible. We use a lot of data and everything to achieve that, but sometimes things happen and goals just aren't met. So they just have to prove that they did outreach, they tried to source other subcontractors that may be working on their projects that could use DBEs. There's a bunch of different things that we go through to make sure that they tried their best, basically. And then if we've determined that they have tried their best, but they still didn't meet the goal, then it likely will be awarded.
Thank you. Okay. I think I'm going to go back to Cathy. What motivates a prime to engage diverse DBE firms when creating a team?
Well, be perfectly honest, the first motivation is if there's a DBE participation goal that's set. But beyond that, I said earlier about this partnership where our DBEs are like an extension of our family. One of the things that is important to us is to utilize DBEs in ways that enhance us, the work that we do, and the quality of the work that we're giving to our clients. So, for example, you're doing a project and maybe, you don't have an office in that exact location, but it's nearby, and maybe you have to do some field work or you have like some outreach you need to do. How do you enhance your project? Get somebody who's local, who's right there. Right? So maybe I don't have that person that's an employee of HDR, but there's a firm that knows the stakeholders, that knows the environment, whatever it is you're dealing with, that will enhance the product that we're offering to the client. So and that's whether there's a DBE requirement or not. I'm going after a project right now where there's no DBE requirement, but we don't have an office there. So yeah, we're going to engage somebody, to do some of the environmental work and engage another firm for the outreach work, because it just makes for a better project and a better team. And if they become great partners and we can have a great relationship with them and grow with them, that's just a win for everybody.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to ask this of both Holly and Beth because you have been through the process. So what challenges do you face within the DBE certification process? So maybe we start with Holly, if you wouldn't mind, talking about maybe any challenges you may have faced becoming a DBE.
Well, that was a while ago. But one of the things that's important to the process is the financial records. And that's kind of like getting pretty personal, kind of like a colonoscopy. And they get to see everything. They want to know where you got your money, how you bought this. They want to see all the titles to all your vehicles and how you purchased them. And so that's kind of how it all starts, because they want to see that you're legitimately created the business yourself and didn't start the business by a corporation or something that came in and just set you up. So that was quite the experience. And then as a consultant, to go through the audit experience was also to be able to figure out what you can charge Department of Transportation projects. That all consultants are selected by the Brooks Act, which is qualifications-based selection, and then your hourly rate is predetermined for you by an indirect cost rate based on everything that you can prove that your expenses and all that stuff. It's pretty torturous to go through that part and very time-consuming. So those are the two areas I think were the biggest process or the difficulties in becoming a DBE.
Beth, did you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, what she said. But I'm going to go a little farther with that. So when you're starting out and you're a small business and you have to make the decision, do you want to apply and go through this process? And you have to lay everything out, like Holly described. I mean, your 401k, your salary, your taxes, your loans, your leases, every contract, everything, you lay it out there. and you don't know who's seeing it. And so you go through that. It's really, it screens some people out who aren't willing to do that. But I was willing, and I have a bunch of other federal statuses and state statuses, so I was like, well, here, see my financials, you know. So that was hard, though. And then I did 1 year miss the deadline to re-up, and so I had to go through it all over again. And so it's an annual thing, and so it's tough. And then I'm going to go a little further, because I don't know if the primes or the other people understand this, but it's an issue with a very small new business. I mean, my business is, I think I first became a DBE in 2009 or so. But like for a newcomer, say you're a new American, say you're just trying to think if you should do this. Well, because we do a lot of work for very large firms, the contracts require that we carry the same insurances as them. And so for a small business, you know, we have commercial liability and all of that, but we've recently been required to start carrying errors and omissions. That policy for us per year is about $9,000. So our audit per year, either you're getting a full federal audit, which is right now is somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 a year, or a review where they're just looking at what you provide them, and that's about $10,000 right now. So to become this, you're looking at an annual investment of about $20,000 plus your time. That's really hard for a new startup. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody if anybody's thinking about it, because if you get enough work, eventually it makes it worth it. But that's a huge commitment when, I don't know about you, but our average profit per project is it's hundreds. It's between 500 or 1,000. So you have to have a lot of projects in order to make just your errors and omissions insurance. And so it becomes a financial decision that you have to make. And the commitment and the time to go through those are huge. So is it worth it? Yes. But I mean, that's the reality of both applying and operating.
Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to go back to Amy. And this question is, I know you're not, speak maybe as your role at the DOT, but how do you monitor the commitment to broader and deeper DBE engagement? Like, what do you, as the DOT, have in place in your department where you're monitoring DBEs and making sure that commitment is there?
Sure. And I'll speak highway construction because that's
Yeah.
mostly what I know. But so we will have a bid opening with the projects that have DBE goals on them. And so primes will indicate that they're utilizing DBE A, B, and C on the project. And they have a form to submit. It's called a notice of intent to commit to DBE Form C. And that's signed by both the prime and the DBE, or if the DBE is working for first tier sub, then the sub is also signing that form. So that's our first indication that both parties have committed to this work on the project. And then sometimes there's a lag in between, obviously, because we have winter and everything. But then once they're on the project, there's certain reporting by the prime that they have to do for payments and everything like that to make sure they're being paid promptly. And then there's also a commercial useful function process for DBEs. So as a DOT, we can't count DBE participation on a project unless the commercial useful function has been completed and we verified that the DBE is performing the work they're certified for, they're following all the rules of the program, and everybody's doing all the things that they need to do. So it's kind of a double check system, both to make sure that the prime's fulfilling their commitment to using the DBE and the DBE is completing the work under their certification.
Maybe taking a step back, and I don't have this question on my sheet, but if you're looking at the goals that the DOT has, are you given those goals by Federal Highway Administration, or does the North Dakota DOT set those goals?
it would be nice if the feds just told us, but no, we set them ourselves. And there's a lot of different criteria that goes into that. The very first thing, it has to have federal funds in it. So the DBE program applies on federal aid projects. So if a project has $1 of federal aid, then it will fall under the DBE program. And then there's a lot of other criteria that we use, the location, obviously the type of work, DBEs that we have certified to do the type of work within the project, whether or not they're willing to work in that location, and stuff like that. So yeah, and we set the goals.
And is that an annual process?
It's there is a triennial goal that the DOT submits to Federal Highway, and that's even more of an analysis to come up with that number that is approved. So as a department, we have a goal. Currently, it's 4.02%, and then we set project goals throughout the year for each bid opening to maintain or reach that goal annually.
Thank you. I don't know if I knew that. Okay, how about, I don't know how I want to direct this one to. Can a DBE be a prime, and how does that impact DBE participation? Maybe start with, yeah.
Yes, they can, and we are both. We contract directly with the DOT, and then when sometimes we have specializations that we don't have on staff, we turn around and we look for them, and we look for DBEs first, and then so yes, the answer is yes.
Maybe just a step further, and I don't know if I have anybody from the DOT in here that could answer this question, but do we have prime percentages on consulting contracts? So like, could a DBE be a lead or prime on a project, having, let's say, 20 or 30% of the contract with a bigger firm or somebody who would normally prime backing them up? I'm looking at you, Matt. Yeah. And maybe there's not, again, if we don't have that, that's fine, but.
Thanks.
I'm going off script. I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable.
Well, and again, consulting is not something I'm super familiar with, but kind of piggybacking on what Beth said, we really like it when DBEs prime projects. We don't have a lot of them that are capable of it. It has to meet their criteria, their type of work that they specialize in and stuff like that. But obviously, so just recently in our last bid opening, there was a DBE that was awarded a project as a prime, and they are completing 50-some% of that. So it didn't even have a DBE goal. It was a 0% DBE goal, but we still count race neutral participation when the project doesn't have a goal. So we got 50-some% to count as a department for that project. And the goal of the program really is to help you develop your company, become big and successful where you don't need the DBE certification anymore, and then you're priming all the jobs. Like, that's the end goal really, if you look at it that way.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to jump into a question about mentor-protege relationships, and I'm going to ask Cathy because we have, at HDR, we have done this in the past, and so how do we use at HDR or develop mentor-protege relationships, and where do we see these relationships working within the industry?
Okay, so we do use them, and we do them both formally and informally. There are some agencies, some organizations that have established mentor-protege programs that kind of flow down from the agency to their contracts. And for some of these, we have actually engaged with them as part of those programs. I know New York State has it. There's some other agencies that have these formally. But what we have actually developed is a mentor-protege program that we offer, and it's on a contract, usually a big contract where we're going to have a lot of subs, where we are offering this as part of the project, usually as a differentiator, which is a nice thing for us, but also it allows us to take those DBEs that we have on our team and elevate them to partners. Because what we're offering as part of these MPPs is like maybe some back office support You know, a lot of times these small businesses, these DBEs, they are a technical expert. They're really good at what they're doing, but they don't have a lot of admin staff. So you have like the president is doing the work and doing the accounting and doing everything. So part of this is we'll help them with some back office support, either train them or actually help them by doing the work. We'll also work with them and identify, do you have a person in your company, the DBE, that maybe would like some project management training? So we will, you know, hook that person up as a protege to, let's say, one of our HDR project managers as the mentor. So there's a lot of different things that we'll offer as part of this MPP to help create that bond with these DBEs. It has actually helped us differentiate us where we did win the projects and we had to do what we said. And it's been very successful. We do this a lot in Texas, in Houston. We have contracts with Houston Metro. We have a full established program that we do as their GEC. Actually, it's the GPC, the General Planning Contract. This full program that we have with them there, and also in Southern California with a couple of agencies. We have something very similar that we're doing in Boston with the MBTA. It's not a formal MPP, but it's something similar where we have like a little menu of options that we're offering our DBEs and saying, which would you like? And we'll do this as part of our program with you. So we really tailor it, but the key thing here is this is not a new idea. There are agencies that have developed these, and for those agencies you kind of fit into that mold, can modify it, but we've also developed our own versions as well.
Okay, I'm going to pass this on, and I think I'll start with Beth this time. And this can go to you, Holly, also. And you've already talked about some of the financial challenges with the kind of paid when paid contracting situations, but what barriers is your firm currently experiencing in operating a small business? That was a hard one.
Well, I would say for us, we're having the same problem as everyone, finding people who are willing to move here and stay here. That's been a huge one for us. I think a lot of people I know who have a niche organization like ours, we've been going great guns. We've had some of the best years ever. And so we're not struggling. It's more of a struggling to keep up and to find people to grow or find that. I wanted to piggyback a little bit on what Cathy said, if I can. So I've been doing this for 25 years and never had wonderful experience like that. And I think if that can come to North Dakota, that would be fabulous. So I have a lot of federal statuses like 8A and economically disadvantaged women-owned small business and other ones like that. And I've tried to find mentor-protege relationships and approached offices of small disadvantaged business at various very large firms and mid-sized firms, and not been able to get anywhere. And so the help that we've gotten so far has been through the consultants that the North Dakota DOT has offered. They have done the same kind of thing. They've sent one of their consultants in to revamp the way that we bookkeep so that we can do federal procurement. And they've looked at the way that we do our work. And so I think the DOT also has that kind of resources and willingness if anybody in a small business needs that kind of help, because we've gotten that for years and years. So I think it'd be fabulous if more of the big primes were willing to create these mentor-protege relationships in North Dakota.
I'd have to agree with that. I think in North Dakota, I tried the same thing, and the larger firms kind of shied away from the mentor-protege relationship. They didn't really understand it, and the more you try to understand it, it doesn't seem to make any sense. So I didn't really have any luck with that either. So the best luck I had was with the DOT and the way that the way they do their process. And in the beginning, when I first started 20 some years ago, it was not very easy in the consultant end of it. And I didn't even think that there was a goal for the consultants. And at that time, Deb Igo was part of the civil rights. And she thought there was, but then when she dug into it a little more, there really wasn't a goal for the consultants. And she kind of got started with forcing the DOT to try and give something to the consultants. And as things kind of progressed, it kind of went south and before it went north. There was a time when the civil rights had a position at the table where they could be part of the interview. And of course, they always put in a vote for the DBE. And things changed, so then I think now the process is if there's a tie, you can get 5 extra points for having a DBE in your team. But as far as I know, there's never a tie. So, but it's still the best chance that I had for bringing our company along, and it brought us, forward to so that we had a place at the table, and it kind of introduced us to all the other firms, and it really did help us a lot. And one of the things that the forms that were filled out that shows that you intend to use somebody on your project is very helpful. In the beginning, we were put on everybody's proposal, but then they didn't use us, so then we didn't find out about it until later. We were thinking, oh, we're going to have lots of work. Everybody's using us, but when it comes right down to it with their contract, then they use their own staff. So, so things have improved that way. So there's more. They have to answer for some of those things, so it's more fair.
So that kind of brings me to a question, and I'm going to ask this of Amy. And I get, again, Amy's on the construction side of things, but how does the DOT ensure certified firms are legitimately operating under the rules of the DBE program? And probably follow up to that, to Holly's point, if they're shown on a contract, is it through payroll, or
Sure.
How is that being monitored?
Sure. So the first part of your question, and just in case nobody knows, states are very different. Some states have multiple certifying agencies within their state. North Dakota, the DOT is the only certifying for DBE for the state. So we certify consultants and highway construction contractors, but we also certify airport concessionaires and other types as well. So the first point of vetting a DBE, or however you want to term it, is our certification process. We are very, very thorough. We are known for that in the nation, I believe, of having a very thorough certification process. We want to make sure they're legitimate, they're following all the rules, and it's always better if they come asking the questions beforehand than coming, because we get a lot of firms sometimes that are like, we need to get DBE certified because Prime said we need to work on the project. And I understand the concept behind that, but that really doesn't give them a clear view of what getting certified really truly means. So firstly, we go through the certification process, which is quite a lot. If you're a North Dakota-based firm, we do a home state application and all the process. If you're interstate, which means you were certified in your home state, so Minnesota or another state, and you come and you're certified in North Dakota, it's different. But for our home state firms, we definitely go through a thorough process. And then there's the commitment form and all that stuff. And then the CUF process, making sure that the DBE's performing what they should be doing under their certification for the contract. But also, there's something called a replacement approval request process for highway construction projects. So if the DBE cannot fulfill their obligations, or the prime wants to switch to somebody else, whatever the reason is to change the original commitment when the project was awarded, that whole process, which everybody has to sign off on it, and there's a bunch of documentation they have to provide stating that the replacement is reasonable, is done to make sure that the DBE is not just left off later.
We had a question for the audience. Oh, you have a question. Well, give me just 1 second. How many of you know where to find the DBE directory on the DOT's webpage?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking. Okay.
I guess, mainly probably for me, actually Cathy, but, how do you, I guess, what do you recommend for approaching conflicting federal regulations? And the example I'll give you for that is, obviously, I work with stormwater and erosion control, and we have DBE contractors for erosion control, and, I tell the primes, we have federal requirements that we have to have things fixed within 24 hours, or stabilized within 14 days. And the answer I get a lot is, well, my DBE contractor can't get here. So how do you meet your one federal requirement with DBE and still meet your other federal requirement that may have a shorter deadline or conflicting issues?
Sure. And I'm sure there's verbiage in the regs and our internal documents as well. But obviously, if it's an emergency situation, that kind of trumps the DBE requirement in a sense, because things happen and things need to be taken care of quickly sometimes. And in those cases, ideally, if there's something that needs to happen at the forefront right away to get whatever it is resolved that wasn't foreseen earlier, then that portion can be done, but the DBE can still hopefully have the rest of whatever the work that was committed to. If there is other work that they can do, then, but stuff like that does happen, and there's change orders on projects where work changes and weather messes things up and stuff like that, so, yeah.
So from the perspective of a prime, I'm actually going through that right now in a project where we are not going to meet our goal. It's just not going to happen. And there are a lot of very legitimate reasons why it's not going to happen. Earlier in the project, there was some emergency that happened and we needed quick turnaround. And, you call your, all the DBEs and they can't get somebody out that quickly. They are not a 12,000 person firm like we are. We were able to find somebody. We were also partnered with AECOM, another 60,000 people. Between the two firms, we were able to find whoever you needed. But our small little firms, 5 people here, 12 people there, they can't respond. So a lot of the work that was supposed to happen totally shifted over and became non-DBE. So, and then there are other issues as well, but, on DBE, we were going to get the electrician from that person, from that firm, and that electrician left, and they don't have an electrician. Things happen. And Amy said a term earlier, good faith efforts. Very, very important. I think we probably all heard of that, right? We know, I think a lot of us know when you're actually, proposing, that term comes into play. What were the good faith efforts you did to actually try to meet the goal? But also when you're actually trying to deliver your project, document everything. And that's what we're doing. Every time we make a phone call, we are documenting it. Every piece of work that was supposed to go here, instead it went there, we're documenting it. And the agency, while they're not happy, they are accepting it. So, and we were reminded these are goals. There's not any one project that's going to, totally blow all the numbers. So we might not meet it, and hopefully there'll be another project where we'll exceed. But document your good faith efforts.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I want to bring this up too. The DOT had a town hall for us last fall, and this came up a number of people that this concern was for them, and it is legitimate that we run into it as well in these same situations. Is if you're a small DBE and you've got 5 people and you're not scheduled for that job for another month, your 5 people are on a job and your equipment, but you've got people hired and equipment in place and everything is ready for that project last month that now isn't there anymore. And so it's really impactful on small businesses, and the DBEs are small businesses. And so it's a real balancing act trying to figure out how do you, if all of a sudden you've staffed up and equipment leased up and all of a sudden that work's not there anymore, it's kind of a shock.
Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, yeah. Oh, got 10 minutes. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? I've got a few more on my list. Oh, we'll go with Kristen first.
You talked about it is a lengthy process to become a DBE. If anybody was
So that all varies on how many people are applying because we're processing new applications in-state and interstate applications from other states, and the DBEs have to renew their certification every year, as Beth mentioned. So those are all being done all the time through our electronic system, which is a lot better process than when we used to do it via paper. So it varies. And it also, we have a timeline that we have to complete a certification, like make a decision. But that timeline starts once we get a full and complete application. So if you're missing documents and stuff like that, and we have to contact you and say, can you submit this other information? As soon as we get a full and complete application, there's a timeline, and it shouldn't be, more than a month or two, depending on people's schedules. There's a lot of people that are involved in it too. And our support services contractor, again, they're phenomenal. I will sing their praises all day long. They also very much help firms through the certification process because it is a lot of documents and everything that you have to put together. And so they are also there as a resource to guide them through the entire process of that.
Maybe a follow-up on that question before I go to Matt is, if someone was interested in starting a business or a DBE, who would they contact at the DOT?
As a DBE?
Yeah, if they want to start the process.
They would contact our office. Jessica or I could help them out, and then we would also connect them with Project Solutions. And it isn't a requirement to be an established business to be a DBE. So if you, decide you want to get into trucking or whatever you want to do, you can still apply as a brand new, newly created business. But there's still a lot of requirements that you have to go through.
Okay, Matt.
I had a question, from the DOT's perspective, being North Dakota's perspective is we lost Holly as a DBE, we have Beth, but how do we grow from the consulting engineering side of the world? How do we grow DBEs?
Well, as far as surveying goes, there aren't that many surveyors to begin with. There are, like we talked about, being a DBE and not being able to complete the project. Within the survey community, there's other firms. We've always been able to call up a surveyor and ask them, can you give us any help to finish this? This project is working at the same time as another one we're committed to. So in that way, they've helped each other out. But for encourage new people, it's especially for surveying, it's the equipment costs are so high. You almost need someone to help you borrow the money to get, just one survey crew to outfit them is almost between 150 and 200,000 for the equipment. So I don't encourage anybody to start a business, especially when it's feast or famine. It's you're working, summers are crazy busy and then the winters are slow. So it's very difficult. This winter is a great winter. A lot of the surveyors are working, but there aren't that many surveyors. There are fewer women surveyors, so it would be really tough to. I don't know. Maybe I'll get into erosion control or seeding or something.
I would say, I'm also in a small niche group, and in our town halls and in my training meetings, there have been people who do porta potties or who do biology or some, small niche groups. I know there are people who do. Some people who do GIS and drone work, and they want to break, they're trying to break in the door, but you have a lot of those services already. And so maybe looking around at what you have already, where there might be some room for, a small business startup to get some contract work, but to take on a $20,000 a year worth of insurance, for one contract, that's a hard ask. So I think, there's ways to kind of look at the niche, the smaller things that are on all these contracts. But then I want to also go back and say, one of the issues with being a DBE, it's not as bad as it used to be, but every construction company or that's thinking about bidding on a project sends blast emails. So it's like, I'm not, you don't, it doesn't have anything to do with what I do with cultural resources or archaeology, but all of a sudden I've got 75 emails wanting a return receipt or call me back and tell me you're not bidding on this so I can count it towards my effort. And it's like, stop, don't blast people with emails. I mean, that it used to be hundreds of every day when we were getting close to bid letting or and it's much better now, but people still do it. And small businesses, it's me answering the email, and I don't have the time to respond to 75 different construction companies from around the country.
Maybe something too, just looking at this from, let's say I wanted to leave HDR and start my own company. I think something the department can do is just make sure that people know where the resources are, who to call and who to ask if they're interested. Maybe just providing some support in the process if somebody were interested in doing something like that. I thought of erosion control at one point too. I did my master's or my MBA project I did a business plan for a erosion control business, and that was going to be a DBE, but now I'm working for a 12,000 person firm. So we only have 5 minutes left. Does anybody else have any questions? Or I just wanted to thank these women for sitting up here. Again, this is a really important topic, both from the state's perspective on needing to meet goals and show that we're doing this type of work, but also from a partnering standpoint. These women provided excellent services to the state of North Dakota. They still do. And larger consultants need help. We all have workforce problems. So any ways that we can find to partner and work together, I think is going to be the key to our success here in the state. So thank you, ladies, for participating, and thank you all for joining our presentation.